Actually, what we'll do, since I don't, everybody's on a different position on each screen, as I list your name, raise your hand so you'll identify
Yep.
yourself. You know, Ron Lennox, Ron
Lennox,
Pico,
Rodriguez.
Pico
We live
Rodriguez.
at La Gracia dos Se. We've lived here we bought the house in 2014. And we live here permanently. We have no other residence other than this one here.
I thought you're residents of the world.
Residents of San Miguel.
Mark, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Mark Hager. My spouse Philip and I own Santa Cruz Cinco Uno, right next door to, who's stuck? Jennifer. We've owned the house since about, I believe, 2004, but we haven't been in residence other than a few weeks or months at a time. But we certainly know a lot of people and feel very deeply connected. So hopefully more time in the future.
David.
Hi, David. My wife Mayumi and I, we live at La Gracia Cinco A. We bought there in 2017. Been away for about 16 months now because of this, and looking forward to getting back there around August.
Donna.
Donna Lyons Miller, Soledad Dos, and I purchased in October of 2018. So coming up on 3 years. I love it here. I love Aldea.
Okay, Anita and
I'm back. Can you hear me?
yes, we hear you. Welcome, bienvenidos.
Good.
Okay.
Gracias.
We're just introducing ourselves. Anita,
As
go.
my internet connection is unstable.
Better than you being unstable, right?
Okay. I'm Anita. This is Mike. We live at Purísima 4. We bought the house from Chuck and Claudine. And we just moved in at the 1st of January, but we've lived in San Miguel for 4 years, full time. And we moved here from Denver, Colorado.
Well, looking forward to meeting you in the flesh. I just got a email update from through Donna, I think, from Chuck and Claudine on the beach in Portugal. You've probably seen it too.
Yeah, they're doing well. It's a beautiful place.
John?
John McLernan. I'm on Purísima Cinco, right across the street from our new neighbors. And hopefully we're going to get back by September.
Yeah. Okay, Lucille.
Hi, I'm in Gracia 2B, and I've been coming to San Miguel since 2000 and bought the house in 2004. And I've lived here since 2019, it appears, but I usually come just 3 months a year and live in New York. But it's been a great year here. So happy to see faces I don't recognize.
And Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer. And as I already explained, my mother bought this place when it was first built in 2004, I think. I just moved here. I fled the US in January, and I've been living here just full time for 3.5 months now and loving it.
Judy?
Yeah, I'm Jennifer's neighbor. We're here in Santa Cruz 3. I'm in house 1 and she's in house 3. I've lived, we bought the house in 2004, so I've lived here 14 years. No, 16 years. Okay.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Vicky, you're muted. We can't hear you.
I mute myself because I have workers and I don't know if it's disturbing. I'm Vicky. I live in Gracia 12 and Gracia 10 is underneath me. So I live upstairs and I've been living here for 3 years. I love it here, or 3 years and a half almost. I love it here. And I'm Mexican. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'm glad to meet you all.
Arlena, we still can't hear you, I don't think. That's Arlena Lawrence, and she's muted, so we can, and she lives on Gracia. What is her number? 5. White House. Still. And I'm Carlos Silverman. I live at La Salud number 6, and I've lived in San Miguel since 2001. Lived here since we've had a home here since 2004. It was in San Antonio on one of the prettiest streets in San Miguel called Vergel. Some of you may know that street. And we bought the home on Salud and renovated it. And in prior years, we expected to be in San Miguel for 6, 8, or 10 months a year. But that's kind of COVID screwed us up. And now my recent cancer diagnosis has screwed us up more. But let me, I'm going to put on the screen the agenda for the meeting. The agenda is fairly short. It's in both Spanish and English, but so both are available. And
Carlos,
you see,
I sometimes I lose you, and I think it's because the sounds of other houses. So I'd like to suggest that we mute ourselves and we unmute ourselves if we want to speak.
very good idea.
Good plan.
Please, yeah. Please mute yourself, and then we will. Okay, then while I. Okay, here should. It worked perfectly a minute ago before the meeting, and now we are. How come it's not? Ah, here we go. Okay. Okay, you all see a document called agenda? Yes? Okay. Okay, I'm mostly going to read it. And then I'll stop every once in a while to ask questions. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand. We are vecinos or friends of La Aldea, and we're a voluntary organization whose purpose is to maintain and improve the neighborhood while helping to provide security for our residents, property owners. In order to be a member of the organization, you must either own property or reside in La Aldea. That is to say, you can be a renter, or you can be a property owner and not live here. But you have to be one or the other or both. Members agree to contribute dues for the purpose, among other things, of paying the veladors at the gate, paying a gardener, and maintaining and improving the community. Members in good standing, that is people who have paid their dues past years or current year, all or part of the dues, are eligible to vote on any proposals that are presented at the meeting today. Our organization is run or led by a steering committee, which I tend to call the junta. And the committee is comprised of members in good standing who oversee the day-to-day activities, which generally includes supervising and paying the veladors and the gardener, keeping an eye on the maintenance of Aldea, handling any emergencies or any paying bills and other things that'll come up. You'll see as we go through the budget. Committee membership is open to any members in good standing. Anybody who wants to be on, just contact me and we can discuss it. And as I said, the duties of the steering committee include managing the employees, collecting dues, contracting for and paying for bills for the community and park maintenance and approved projects. And so let me ask, is anyone who has a question about that so far? Why don't you unmute and ask the question? Okay.
Question. If someone is a renter and wanted to be part of this group, they would have to pay even though they are renters. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's a good question. It's a very good question, because we have had in the past some renters who pay dues on their own. We've had other renters who paid dues on whose landlords paid their dues. I mean, my recommendation would be to a property owner who rents his property, that or her property, since your renters are getting the benefits of living in La Aldea, they should in fact pay the dues either by paying them separately or by paying them through their rental payments. We don't care where the money comes from, but the fact is, if there are people living here, they're getting the benefits of having veladors, they're getting the benefits of the gardener, they're getting the benefits of the park, they're getting the benefits of any repairs that we do. And we think it's fair and right that that either the renters or the landlords pay the dues, the quota.
Thank you.
Okay. And they should work it out between themselves if they can. Usually the landlord who has a lease will set the standard on that. But we've had, for example, landlords who refuse to pay the dues, and the tenants decided that it was right and fair for them to pay, and they paid. For example, Roger and Jane on my neighbors a couple of doors away paid dues for a number of years. Okay. So continuing, how do we spend your money? I guess the answer is very carefully. All our committee is all volunteers. We don't get any money for doing the work we do, the volunteer work. We are reimbursed occasionally for expenses. And many of the members of the committee have paid, donated funds, not just their time, but donated funds for projects that we've done. They donated money out of pocket without any public acknowledgement, and other than private acknowledgement from the other members of the committee. Some people wish to donate money anonymously, and that's fine. But we've had some very generous members of the committee. So we supervise the employees to the extent possible. We pay them. We are responsible. We spend your money on lighting, repairs, water, garden and park maintenance, emergencies, such as a couple of years ago when a tree fell down, such as a couple of years ago when we had the flood from the rains. And then we have approved items that we spend your money on, such as the bathroom for the employees, the uniforms for the employees, the booth at the gate entrance, signage that we put up. That's the kind of things we spend money on. Any questions about that? You have to unmute yourself if you're going to ask a question. Okay. Now I'm going to share a different document. I'm going to share a financial report, the budget versus the actual for last year. And give me a minute. It's a little, figure out how I'm going to do this. Budget versus actual. Okay, good. It's a fairly simple document, at least I hope it is. Okay, what it shows, can everybody see it? Shake your head. Or okay, what it shows, and I think it's important to understand this in in the year when we had, in last year, which was such an unusual year, is we had a budget to collect 546,500 pesos. And that's this number here, of which 460,000 was in the form of dues, quotas. Because of the pandemic, we actually collected, instead of 460, we collected under 400, about 398. And this variance line shows a negative variance, which is bad, of 61,000 pesos to 61,240, which means we collected 61,240 pesos less in dues than we had hoped to collect, than we had budgeted. Our interest income and money in the bank was a little less than budgeted. Our donations were 7,730 less than budgeted. Our fundraising was a couple of thousand less than budgeted. The money people paid voluntarily for parking fees was less than budgeted. And the donations of in-kind donations, that is when people donated, I don't know, stuff, was also a little less than budgeted. And our improvement fund was also, the improvement fund last year was for the caseta, the booth, the guard booth. And that was, we didn't, actually that was paid for by volunteers. It really should show that, but I think that's just a correction. So we actually our income was 97,000 pesos less than we anticipated. Normally, and even this year, that's not good news. However, our board pivoted very quickly, and the way we pivoted was primarily by reducing the payroll. You may recall, if you were at last year's meeting, that we budgeted for 24/7, 365 round the days, round the clock veladors, gatekeepers. Because of our reduction in income, we did not hire a third velador, and we only went with 2 veladors. So we actually, instead of spending 401,000 pesos, we spent 300,000 pesos. So 100,000 less than we anticipated. Maintenance, well, holidays and bonuses were a little less than anticipated because we had 1 fewer employee. Maintenance and repair were higher than anticipated. And I believe that was, well, it was primarily due to maintenance that we had to do, some street repairs, some other things. Bank fees, a little more or less what we anticipated. Supplies, a little less than anticipated. Park supplies, less than anticipated. Improvement projects, we thought we were going to have 70,000 pesos available for improvement projects, but because of the pandemic, we did not spend that. Office expenses, less than anticipated. Park maintenance was more than was budgeted, but it may have been included in under park supplies. And miscellaneous expenses, the same thing, was more than was budgeted, but that's just a sort of a budget oddity. So our expenses were anticipated to be 583,000 pesos. That was what was budgeted. And we anticipated, if you go to the bottom line there, we anticipated a budget deficit of 37,000. 37,025 pesos. That was our projected deficit. We were, because we cut our expenses from the budgeted 583 to 435, we actually ended up, instead of an operating deficit, we ended up with a small operating income of 13,000 pesos. So if you take 13,000 and you add 37,000 to it, which was the deficit we expected, we actually did 50,000 pesos better than we budgeted for the year. I know for some of you, thank you, Vicky. For some of you that don't look at income statements regularly, this may be a little confusing, and Ron or I or Donna would be happy to explain it to you. But I think what you see is basically good news in the sense that your board was able, despite lowered revenues, we were able to cut our expenses and to maintain a balanced budget. You have any specific questions about that? Unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay. We can also email these to you, the documents to you. We can email them to you. So now I'm going to put up, oh, Lucille, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you tell me what hours there are doormen at the gate?
Okay, well, actually, you'll see that at the end, but right now we have Jaime working from 10 to 6, and that's not, it's approximate, but basically his 8 hours are from 10 to 6, 6 days a week. Pablo, who is the night watchman, we've shifted his hours several times, but he is working from 7 p.m. till 3 a.m. Okay. We do have a camera at the gate, and we have access to that, so we're able to spot check that the veladores are there when they're supposed to be there. Pablo was sick for a number of weeks, so he was off. We also have Gabino, who works Sunday night, which is really Monday morning, but Sunday nights from midnight till 8 a.m. I believe, is that his hours, Ron? I'm sorry. Are those Gabino's hours, midnight till 8 a.m.? I think they are on Sunday night.
It's midnight to 8 on Sundays.
Correct. Okay. So, you know, if we ever what your committee looked at was the hours we felt were most important to have a person at the gate, and those are the hours that we made Pablo and Jaime work. In the past, sometimes in the past, we've had a bigger parking problem, and for that reason, we like to have a velador come earlier. But since the pandemic, we've had less problems with people parking in Aldea. So we have, Jaime's been able to come a little later and work a little later till 6, which I think is more valuable to us. But it's, you know, we have the capacity to adjust their hours as needed. Okay, so now the other document that I want to share with you, if I can find it, is the budget for this coming year, and for this year, the year that we're in right now, and it is budget. And what I've done on this, what I've done on this is I showed this column, which is the middle column here, what the actual numbers were for 2020. And then we worked from that and created a budget for 2021. And the third column, the last column, shows the change. And I think the most important change, the one that makes most of the difference, is our association dues. Last year, as I said, we collected 100,000 pesos, I'm sorry, 61,000 pesos than we expected to collect in dues. This year, we believe, and we budgeted for 484,000 pesos, which is actually greater than we budgeted for last year. The reason we did that is that we created a different dues structure. We created a dues structure with 3 levels of dues. We have what we call the basic dues, which represented no change from the past few years. That was 8,800 pesos or 8,000 pesos if paid before the end of March. We created what we called a fair or justo level of dues, and that was 12,000 pesos a year or 1,000 pesos a month. And the way we developed this was by looking at a number of other residential communities in San Miguel and what they charge their residents with similar services. That is perhaps a park and some gatekeepers. And there are 2 or 3 other communities in town, and we looked at their dues, and they were roughly 1,000 pesos a month or 12,000 pesos. Then we created a third level of dues. We called it the benefactors, and this is a voluntary level above and beyond the previous 2 levels, the basic and the fair dues. And at this level, we allowed people to pay additional amounts, and a number of residents, a surprising number of residents paid 20,000 pesos and up to 25,000 pesos. And I think that they wanted to support Aldea in a difficult year, and they did it in a nice way. And in fact, to date, that is through the middle of April, we have collected 486,000 pesos from 40 residents, an average of 12,500 pesos for each of the residents that's paid. 23 residents have not yet, residents or property owners have not yet paid their dues. And some of them we expect, and we hope that they will pay dues. And so I'm very pleased with the results. I think that it shows that it was a good decision. The board really discussed it extensively, the issue of whether or not to increase dues and to create multiple levels. But if you look down at the expense section of the budget, in the income section, there were not any major changes from last year's actual, except for the dues. On the expense side, the changes are, we expect some payroll increases. We expect maintenance repair, no, that's a decrease, I'm sorry, maintenance repair decrease, park supplies, improvement projects, we basically expect to maintain most of our expenses and have a somewhat of an increase in the payroll expense. That may or may not happen. It depends on what happens with the veladors and some other, if we later have any pay increases. But at the moment, we are on track. And we are on track. If you look down at the bottom, last year, as I showed you, we had a 13,000 peso surplus or income. And this year we're budgeting something similar, 18,000 pesos, which is a 5,000 peso increase in a year where there's a pandemic and a quarantine. So I think if we're able to achieve that, anywhere close to that, I think again, it will be a victory for Aldea. So we also continue to maintain a cash reserve of at least 100,000 pesos, and that was decided at last year's annual meeting. The residents voted to establish and maintain 100,000 peso reserve for emergencies, and we've been able to do that also. So are there questions about the 2021 budget? And we are, as I mentioned, we're more than a quarter of the way through, and at the moment we're on track meet or beat our budget.
I have
Anita?
a question. When and how do we pay or the visitor parking fees? I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, we don't really have the right to charge fees for visitor parking. I'm not talking about your visitors. What I'm talking about are people that want to park their cars in La Aldea inside the gate. And what we have is essentially a voluntary process where people who want to park pay money to our veladors, and the veladors give us the money, and we use that money for the benefit of La Aldea. In past years, it's been as much as 20,000 pesos. Okay. It's also in past years, and we've solved most of it. In past years, the veladors, some of the veladors saw that as their bonus money, and they put the money in their pocket and supplemented their payroll. I think we're avoiding that now.
Can I jump in here for a second?
Yeah, sure. Yes, Ron.
I think that there are some people that have recently moved in. So I want to make you aware that as far as we know now, we do not have the ability to keep people out. We can discourage people from coming in. The city allows us to close the gate, but these are, in essence, public streets. So I push back, and we're not charging for parking. We're charging for parking services. In other words, if you want someone to open up the gate for you to let you in and they watch your car, we charge for the employee expense to provide a service for them. We cannot stop people from parking inside the gate.
Right. You probably saw the sign on the gate in Spanish and English that says residents only. Those signs alone keep out about 80% of the people who might otherwise, pull into La Aldea. The gate and the sign, most people, especially people who do not, from out of town, see that sign and they say, oh, this is a gated community, we can't go in there. But as you know, you've lived in town a long time, there's the city has continued to reduce the number of free parking spaces available. So that puts a greater and greater demand on the parking. If we left the gates open during normal times, forget pandemic times, but during normal times, holiday weekends, we might fill up with visitors' cars. And also that is a security risk for us. If the gates are open and strange cars are coming in, that can't be good for those of us who live here. So as long as we're permitted, we are doing our best to control the traffic and the parking in Aldea. Yes.
Thank you.
Lucille, yeah. Sorry.
How high a priority is it on your list of expenses for this year to have 24-hour coverage?
It has moved down the list because this is our third year that we as officers, we've taken over running from Chuck and Claudine, who were doing a great job. We've taken over for them, and we made it our priority to sort of professionalize some of this, to put this on the computer, to have a residence directory, and to do a better job collecting dues, because we had more people to do it. And Chuck and Claudine did a better job than their predecessors. So the first year that we took over, we really increased our revenue, increased our dues and our collection of dues. The second year, which was last year, we expected to continue increasing dues and thereby be able to hire a third full-time velador. When the dues, because of the pandemic, when the dues declined, we had to pivot and not hire the third velador. It also has been, as the committee can vouch, much more difficult than we expected to hire honest, reliable veladors. We've hired some, they don't show, they go in and out, they go to sleep, they do this, they do that, they disappear. It's been very difficult, and we have hired probably 3 or 4 before getting one that is more or less a keeper for the moment. So the answer is it's moved down on our priority list, but we certainly haven't forgotten about it, and we think about it. We talk about it at all of our meetings, whether we can do that. And it's one of our goals, but probably not for this year, absent some angels giving us more money. But there are other issues for 2021. Are there other questions about the 2021 budget? Okay, again, this is available for us to mail it to you. I'm going to, let's see, will it allow me? I'm gonna add back the agenda, put that back on the screen. A little more. Oops. Okay, agenda. Here we go. And
Charles,
yes.
I just have a quick question since we were just talking about parking.
Mhm.
It's only happened once, but what is the recourse when somebody parks and blocks your gate? Who does one go to? And they're not around their car?
What I would
Do
do,
I just go to Jaime or?
you would start with Jaime. You would start with Jaime. The police, unfortunately, because we're gated, the police will not enforce, not voluntarily or easily enforce parking inside our gate.
That's exactly why I was asking. Though they do enjoy our water down at the park. I always see the police there.
Exactly. They do. And that's on our list of things to deal with SAPASMA and with the city. The police.
Also, we have just, that came to our attention, and we're working with Celestino to put a lock on the water valve at the park. Because right now, there's a lot of people that just go up, turn it on, and leave it on. I live across the street from the park. So we're working to put a tamper-proof on and off valve on that. So we have control of it, not other people.
And frankly, we like having the police hang around in Aldea. They act as some kind of deterrent, somewhat of a deterrent. So the fact that police are hanging out by the park, whether they're eating their lunch or washing their cars, that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. I think
My
it's great
opinion.
having them.
My
Yeah.
So the priorities for 2021, I think the major priority, or the committee thinks it is really pandemic issues. We want to support both the residents and the employees' health and safety as best we can, which is everybody's priority this year. We want to control our expenses because we just don't know what's going to happen. Things can get worse as easily as they can get better. I know in San Miguel, they have just started a week or two ago giving vaccines, but that could stop, that could halt. We also could have variants of COVID. We just don't know what's going to happen. So we think it's prudent to, as one of my friends used to say, keep our powder dry, keep our money in reserve, and have it available in case it's needed. We want to monitor our employees' health and safety. We want to make sure they wear masks, which I'm not there right now, and I hope they are. We've asked them to, and we check on them. Security is always basically our top priority, and that's in part by having at least 2 veladors working daily and maintaining and improving our lighting. I did expect to be in town, and I do have some ideas and a project to encourage people to put their own lights on homes. Our lights, by the way, throughout Aldea are paid for, the electricity is paid for by the city. But the city doesn't maintain the lights. And some of them, the bulbs go out, some of them are 30 years old, the fixtures. In the park, there's several poles with lights on them that don't work. And because these things are so old, we've spent a lot of money in trying to maintain them. I have met with the Alumbrado Público, the public lighting department 2 or 3 times to no avail so far, but we have not given up. And I think the answer for the moment is for individual homeowners to put lights on their homes to provide lighting, safe lighting for walking and for security. I've put on 2 lighting fixtures on my home that go on at dusk and off at dawn. Another priority for us is park and community maintenance. Even though our funds may go down, maintenance continues to be required. We do have some small improvements that we will do as funds are available. You know, things like put some new plants in the park, maybe some benches. We have plenty of ways to spend money if we have the money, but we're not in a hurry. The committee is not in a hurry to spend money just because we don't know what's going to happen. We have to continue to do road and sidewalk repairs, at least the basic repairs. We have been meeting and working with the city. We have a dream, shall I say, that the city will pay for or pay the lion's share of road replacement, road repairs, replacements, and sidewalk replacements. But we don't have an answer to that yet, and we continue to work with the city on that and trying to get that accomplished. I thought it would be easier than it is. When I lived in San Antonio, I worked with the city and I got the city to pave our street, and we split the cost with the city, and it worked out very well. But that was just one block. As I said, and as you see here, the traffic control has not been a major issue during the pandemic. Okay. I'd like to ask for 3 votes right now of the people in attendance, and I think we have a dozen people in attendance. And the way that we work is a majority of the people in attendance can approve any vote that we call. So the first vote, actually make it easy. I didn't put it maybe in the right order. The current officers and committee members have agreed, and actually I should show you here. The current members of the committee are myself, Javier Garcia Barrera, David Godby, Ron, Donna, and Jane. They have all agreed to continue on the committee. The positions that 3 of them are committee members at large. I'm more or less I'm the president. Donna has been the vice president and treasurer. I should give her credit for that, and does a great job. And Ron is the treasurer, and he does a terrific job with that. He's really does his work accurately and timely. So I'm really, we've been really pleased. So I'd like to start with a vote. And as I said earlier, anybody who would like to be on the committee, contact me and we can discuss it. Ron, are you saying something? Ron you want a replacement?
No,
Begging.
the amount of work from the in-large members are basically to provide input and support on occasional things that come up. Okay, I handle payroll on a weekly. I have a weekly chore. Carlos does and Donna does. But those at large, we really want to have more voices and more input. The amount of work required is to attend a Zoom meeting once a month and to give your ideas. And if you want to become involved and you want to really understand on a monthly basis what's going on, it's not a lot of commitment of time. And we really, I would really appreciate people showing that they are concerned about their community and willing to spend 45 minutes to an hour once a month. You can contact us directly and we can talk about, exactly what's in charge, but it is not daily duties. It is strictly involvement and understanding in your input into what we want to know what you want to do here. We don't want 3 or 5 people making decisions without you providing the input, but we need you to attend a meeting once a month.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
End of my prayer.
Thank you, Ron. Very accurate description. The duties are sometimes even less than that. We have really done a terrific job in, I'd call it professionalizing what we do and making it easier. In the past, the people who were administrators kept all the money at their homes. They paid the veladors in cash. It was a lot of work. They had to be here every week to pay. We've turned that into, we're working with a bank, O'Rourke, that is holding the funds, paying us interest. They pay the veladors, so we do not have to pay them in cash. And it's a much better system. It works. It's been working very smoothly. We were warned it wasn't going to work, and it's been great. It really has been great, and it really has reduced the amount of work. Most of our members pay their dues in a timely, respectful manner. They pay them directly to us. They drop them off at our home, or they pay by Venmo or PayPal or Zelle, or check. But it's very gratifying. And one of the reasons it's gratifying is because I'm working with people, and we're working with people who care about Aldea and are working selflessly for no money for the benefit of the neighborhood. And that feels good. And they're all smart people, they're sharp people and interesting people. But even if you don't want to be on the committee, we still welcome your input. We welcome your help. We welcome your ideas. Vicky has a lot of ideas and interest in the parks, for example, and in recycling. And we appreciate her input. We've worked with her on that. So I'd like to ask first for 3 votes. The first vote is to approve the current slate of officers and committee members. If you, is the easiest way, Ron, to signify by raising your hand if you're in favor, so everybody doesn't have to unmute. Raise your hand if you're in favor of the current slate. Okay. Can you see everybody, Ron? Because I can't on my, let's see. Okay. Oh, right here. Okay. Can you raise your hand if you're opposed to the current slate? That looks pretty good to me. Okay. The current slate is re-elected. The next thing I'd like for a vote on is the approval of the 2020 financial report. That was the first report I showed you where, even though the dues declined by 100,000 pesos, or the dues and the income declined by 100,000 pesos, we were able to reduce our expenses by 150,000 pesos, thereby ending up with a small surplus of 13,000 pesos. So this is last year's budget and last year's actual, and I would ask for your vote of approval of last year's financial results by raising your hand.
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Just like it's like we witness, or this is my English. I'm just not understanding what the vote is.
What it is, we can't change the results from last year because the results are the results, but we're reporting the results in a public way to you. You can see what the results are. You have an opportunity to ask questions and if you wanted to dispute them. And you are saying, we've seen them, we approve of the way that the board handled it and the financial results. This is a report, a public report to our members about how money was handled. And Ron, can you expand on that? Or David, you have?
I think I get it. Thank you.
We're not.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
So I would add, so we have a approval of the 2020 report. Okay. Doesn't mean you agree on everything. It means that you approve the report as it was presented. The budget is the 2021 budget is a little different. The 2021 budget on that sheet that we showed you, that we can also email to you, we showed our actual income and expenses for 2020, and then we projected our income and expenses for 2021. And for 2021, our projection for the year is that we will end up in a roughly similar place with a small operating surplus of 18,000 pesos. We are expecting, and so far we're on track to realize more income in dues than last year and keep our expenses under control. Our dues, our income would increase more than our expenses would increase, so that our operating income would end up slightly higher than last year. Would end up at 18,000 pesos. Last year, we ended up at 13,000 pesos of income. So last year, our income in dollars, for those of you, few of you who think in dollars, it was about $650. And this year, our income, total income, will be about $1,000. Remember, and that is on a total budget of about $25,000 or 527,000 pesos. We operate, almost everyone pays in pesos. We operate in pesos. All of our expenses are in pesos. So are there any questions about the 2021 budget? Okay, may I ask for a vote? Am I muted? May I ask for a vote? Okay. Okay, I'm looking at everybody's picture. Okay. Okay, well, I'm doubling all the salaries of the committee members. That's the only thing I got to tell you.
Okay.
The last thing I would like to do is, as I try to end every meeting, by thanking the committee members and our resident members. I want to thank the residents because you've really supported the association by paying your dues. And you've also, in private meetings with you and sometimes publicly, you've expressed your encouragement and your appreciation of our work. I know when we did the bathroom for the employees and when we put the guard booth up, a lot of people mentioned that it was a long time coming and they really appreciated it and they thought that it was a great thing for our employees. And we think that it's the least we can do to show respect for our employees and also to keep them, to have a clean working bathroom, clean functioning bathroom, and a booth, so that when it's raining or when it's cold, they have shelter, which they never had in the past. And again, as I'd like to end by thanking the members of the committee, all of whom have agreed to serve for another year: Ron, Javier, Donna, David, and Jane. And each of you has made a significant contribution to our work during a tough year that none of us expected. So, I'm really appreciative of it, and the fact that I've been in Michigan for over a year, since March 23rd, and things have run very smoothly. I owe it all to those of our members who are in San Miguel, and I really appreciate it. I tried to give the job of president to somebody else. Nobody wanted it. So with that, I'd open the floor to other questions. And are there any questions at this point? Yes. Okay.
I want to know if anybody knows what the burro sound is that happens 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
It's the sound of, and it's very loud, and
Yes.
it's late at night and early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is.
Really?
Charles, you wouldn't know this.
It
But
is-
at
it
first
is
I thought it was
actual-
a real borough, and that was
actual
flooded.
borough.
It's a
an
real
actual
borough.
in San Antonio. And
It
we hear
wasn't-
every single day, it's better than a rooster.
Yes,
What
it
is it? Ron, I couldn't say it again,
It's better than having a rooster.
but what is it?
it's a
borough.
borough.
No,
Oh, yes.
it's a real donkey?
Oh, yes.
No kidding.
Nope.
I was
No,
gonna ask if it was bagpipe, maybe the bagpipers.
Isn't
You want
it?
a pet? You want a pet?
Where is the bird? Where is it?
In
San
San Antonio.
Antonio.
Okay, Mark, you have a question? You have to unmute. We can't hear you unless
Okay,
you're.
great. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of questions or thoughts. One is not being as well informed. What is I guess, the profile of actual property or personal crime in the last year that has happened, maybe not happened in the Aldea?
We have had 0 reported crime. We've had a couple of times when I've talked to Pablo where he's kept us safe, but I have had no reports of any robberies or mysterious people. I have had none. We do have a WhatsApp emergency group. You're welcome to join that. I know Mary Lee had an incident about 2 weeks ago where Pablo had called the police late at night because he had found a Nissan truck running without anyone in it. So he had called the police on his own. The police came, were looking for the owner of the Nissan truck, and Mary became concerned. So she got on this WhatsApp emergency list, and I went out with a flashlight and went around the neighborhood, and we resolved what the problem was. So other than that, I've had no incidences whatsoever. Had nothing.
Thank you.
Ron, thank you. Ron put up the view of the camera that is at the gate, so we can see night and day. We can see what's going on at the gate, and that's live.
And any of you that have nothing else better to do in your lives, and you want to monitor the front gate, anyone that's a member in good standing can have a link, and you can look at it 24/7 if you want to. Better than Netflix.
One of the questions, Mark, that comes up is, let's say we have a Velador, a gatekeeper, who's making rounds at night, and he sees something is amiss. For example, in one case, about 1.5 years ago, water was pouring out of the garage, one of my neighbor's houses. At 2 a.m, he knocked on the door, he rang the bell, and they came out. But what if the resident was there? What would he do? Who would he call? Now, would he have a list of, we don't have this, but he might have a list of residents. We can call a number, or a list of management companies. I mean, I certainly don't want to be bothered at 3 a.m. because water's coming out of my neighbor's house. Maybe my house, yes. But it's a question how to handle those kinds of emergencies.
Mhm.
Another one would be if somebody's door was left open, and this has actually happened to me. Somebody's door could be open intentionally or accidentally, or it could be, I could have left the door open intentionally because somebody's coming. I could have left it open accidentally, or someone could have broken in. So again, what do we want the Velador to do in that circumstance? I mean, personally, I would want him to contact me first. But everybody may have a different opinion. And let's say if our Veladors speak, especially like Pablo, he doesn't speak any English, and he calls a resident who only speaks English, how is he going to communicate? Those are the kinds of issues that we're looking for creative answers to. And then a third one would be if there's an actual problem, whether it's not an emergency, but let's say there's somebody suspicious, the Velador should be handling it as a police emergency. He should be calling the police, not attempting to intervene himself, especially if there's any risk to his personal safety. And in the past, I know we had a situation where Velador would be fighting with an intruder, and we don't want that to happen. That's not the Velador's job.
I'll relay another incident that just happened 3 days ago. There have been a couple of Hovens that like to drink in the park. And I've had a couple of residents come up and tell me about this. And Pablo went and confronted them and had to call the police, and the police came and confiscated the beers that they were having. Good, young men in the park doing what probably a few of us on this call have done in the past, probably. Well, I was able to determine what residence it was here. I contacted the father of these two young men, and he has taken charge. He apologized both to Jaime and to Pablo, and there should not be an incident like this again. This is neighbors helping neighbors, okay? It is not our gatekeeper's responsibility. It is our collective responsibility to know each other, to know your neighbor. Jan Quinn was out of town for 2 months. She made me aware of it. I had her key, I had her backup. This is neighbors helping neighbors, which is much more powerful than relying upon Pablo or on Jaime. Okay, if you're going to be out of town, you should have someone backing you up. You should have someone that your neighbors are your best protection here. And I'm very, very lucky to know 99% of everyone that lives around me. And if I have a problem, I get on the phone or I get on email directly to them. And I have been very, very pleased with the response and the responsible comeback to me. So my suggestion is everyone, know your neighbors and take care of your property, and because your neighbors will take care of you.
It's another advantage of being on the committee is you get to meet more of your neighbors, and that's generally a joy with a few exceptions. Okay, are there any other questions? Raise your hand, and you are of course welcome to contact any of your committee members by email if you have questions. Or
I might just make a comment. We had a very sad situation with our maid, where I think quite a few people knew in the area. She died of COVID, and we supported her through the hospital, through for medicine and all the parts that came. We had the house totally not synthesized, but we had it all totally cleaned by a company from Querétaro. So I just want you aware, and our neighbors would be aware also. So I just wanted to pass that on. It was quite a sad situation.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a comment or?
Well, can I get a show? I really enjoyed this today. Okay, I mean, we really got to know each other a little bit better. The community that we live is so blessed with such wonderful people that live here. Is there an interest with maybe having a once a month happy hour, a Zoom happy hour amongst us? Is this something that I can easily schedule? You show up, you don't show up. Is there an interest in that?
Well, if you try, if you see, if you try it and they come, there's an interest.
And I have gossip to share every week. And we'll get Arlena on the line too. And fill us in on everything else I don't know, if that's possible. So
Might I make the suggestion that we publish our beverage recipes in advance and have a share,
We'll have a wine and liquor happy hour once a month. And I'll schedule one for, at the end of May. And I do this with a whole bunch of, I'm a member of Democrats Abroad, and you, and it's just a way to share things together. And so we'll try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I won't do it anymore. How's that?
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. Anyone else have a comment before we close out the meeting?
Well, I really use the dog park, and during the pandemic, our dog died, and I want everyone to know we're getting a new dog. We're going to have a new puppy, and we'll be go back to using our wonderful dog park again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close out the meeting. Thank you for attending, the 14 of you who were here, and for approving the work of your committee. We look forward to serving you for another year. Thanks.
Thanks. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Charles, be well.
We'll see you, Lucille.